Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Homeroom live stream. Sal here from Khan Academy. We have a very exciting guest today. We have Tabatha Rosproy, 2020 National Teacher of the Year. So if you have questions for what it's like to be a teacher, especially a teacher of early learners, start putting them on the message boards on Facebook and YouTube. But before we jump into what promises to be a really fun conversation, I'll make my standard announcements. Reminder that Khan Academy is a not-for-profit organization. We can only exist because of philanthropic donations from folks like yourself. So if you're in a position to do so, please think about going to khanacademy.org/donate. Also want to make a special shout out to several organizations that stepped up when they found out that we were running at a deficit going into COVID, and that deficit has only accelerated because of our costs going up, because of our server costs. So we're trying to accelerate a whole bunch of programs for teachers, parents, and students. So special thanks to Bank of America, Google.org, AT&T, Fastly, and Novartis. I still also want to remind folks about Homeroom with Sal, the podcast. That's essentially a modified version of the live stream, kind of some of the more poignant moments that you might find useful, and you can consume it safely in your car or wherever without having to see things. So encourage you to go subscribe to the Homeroom, the podcast. So with that, I'm excited to have Tabatha Rosproy on. Tabatha, good to see you.
Hi, good to see you too. Thanks for having me.
No, it's my honor. You are 2020 National Teacher of the Year. You're based in Kansas. So how did you become National Teacher of the Year?
I asked
What
myself
is the
that.
process like?
So I was nominated at my district level for State Teacher of the Year. And you go to a regional banquet. There are 4 regions in Kansas. And I was named one of the finalists here in Kansas. And then I was named Kansas Teacher of the Year shortly after that. And after that, you submit an application to CCSSO, the Council of Chief State School Officers, and they have a team of 17 different organizations that pick 4 finalists. And I was one of those. I was really surprised when I got the phone call because it was a Washington, D.C. number, and I thought it was a political call, just going into an election year. So I didn't answer at first before I got a text message asking me to call them back. And after that, the other 3 finalists, who are incredible, we all went to Washington, D.C. and interviewed with those varying education organizations. We did keynotes, we interviewed with press, and just a short while later, I was selected as National Teacher of the Year.
Wow. Well, congratulations. I was lucky to see some video footage of some of the things you do with your students, and I didn't see what the other teachers are doing, but it made me pretty convinced that you are very well deserving of National Teacher of the Year. I think we have some of this footage. If we could take a look at it, Felipe, and if you could talk us through what's going on.
Oh, yes. This is a Zoom call with a class full of preschoolers, which I'm sure some people can identify with. The older kids, you can't get to talk, but the younger kids, you can't get them to stop talking. So it's incredibly, incredibly unique to be on video chat with 4-year-olds. And I think at this time, I was just reading them a story about why they couldn't be at school. This was really shortly after, the school buildings had been shut down in the spring. Oh, and this is one of our Friday dance parties here.
Every Friday.
Yes, every Friday we have a dance party, and occasionally in between when the students, ask for them or we just need a break. I have a disco light that I got pretty cheap online, and we play oldies. We play things that they like from their favorite YouTube stars, and we have a great time celebrating together.
I hope to attend one day. This seems like a better party than most of the things I'm invited to.
Oh, and here is we were releasing some of our butterflies. So this is outside of the nursing home that my preschool is housed inside of. And what you can't see is kind of off screen. We have some grandma and grandpa residents, that's what we call the volunteers who live there, watching us release our butterflies that we watched grow from caterpillars.
Wow.
Oh, and these are my students. So one thing I really focus on in my classroom is social emotional health and self-regulation and those relationships from student to student. And here we are doing an activity that builds those relationships, where they're doing a row, row, row your boat game. They have to keep each other safe. It's playful. It's silly. There's positive physical touch and just loving interactions, and that helps them grow closer to each other and build those super strong relationships.
Wow. No, I'm envious of your students. I mean, I had some great teachers too, but I don't remember the dance parties or the row your boat simulations and the butterflies. So that's incredible. And the age group you teach out there in Kansas, you said preschoolers, mainly 4 year
Yeah, I
olds.
teach 4-year-old preschool. Yeah, my classroom is funded by the public school and special education and at-risk dollars. But yeah, we're a public school program for 4-year-olds.
And what kind of gravitated you to that age group? And what do you think is kind of the mindset or the special sauce that you bring, day in, day out? And I'm sure many other teachers do as well, but you clearly are one of those teachers that I think these 4 year olds, even when they're 40 or 50, are going to remember those moments. What drew you to teaching, and especially that group? And how do you view it that gives you that special pixie dust?
When I was in high school, I knew that I wanted to help people, but I began taking a dual credit college Spanish class in which I got to go down to the preschool on our block, like in our district, and teach Spanish to preschoolers. And before we started interacting with the students, we got to just observe in the classroom. And I remember this moment so clearly. It was the first time I had ever witnessed teaching from an outsider perspective. I had always been on the end of being delivered instruction. And it was the first time that I truly saw teaching as the art form that it is. That teacher that I was watching, her name is Pat Walton, and she is now retired. But the way that she connected with her students, that she really acted as a guide for their learning, the way that she built relationships with them, it was magical for me to see. And from then on out, I knew that I wanted to work with kids, and I knew that I wanted to work with really young kids too.
No, that's incredible, and there's tons of questions coming in because I think especially the
Oh,
young kid crowd. My youngest is 5.5, so I won't make too many of the questions about my personal help that I need. But from YouTube, we have a question from Karis Alexander. What tips do you have for older siblings trying to help younger siblings with tutoring and homework and distance learning? How much should we help, and how?
mhm. That is a great question. I have so many students in my class who you can tell when they haven't had to like talk for themselves or do things for themselves, and usually they have older siblings. So what I would do is just have a conversation with your older kids and talk to them about the role that they play, right? So they want to take care of them, but the best way that we can take care of our younger siblings is to help them learn how to do things for themselves, because we won't always be there, right? And they need to be able to solve problems on their own. And so you could give them a list of things that they could do to be helpful, including being a good role model. Like what does it look like when you are doing your own work? Include your younger sibling in that time. But I would just be really open with them about that and be thankful for the moments that they are helping, because you definitely don't want to see them go the other way and not be interested in that at all. But I think for sure older siblings can be great models, but you're right on that sometimes we give them a little bit too much help.
To help them help themselves. And I've got to believe that Karis is a pretty good older sibling. The very fact that they're asking this question shows that they care a lot. So your younger siblings are very lucky, Karis. From YouTube, Miss Victoria asks, how do you react to sassy kids? The ones that say, you can't tell me what to do, etc. I've never
Okay.
encountered sassy kids. My kids never do anything like that, but I guess in
Oh,
theory, other kids might. So I'd love the advice there too.
I think that one of the first things you have to do as the adult in the situation is recognize your triggers. And so that definitely would have been one of my triggers, being talked to disrespectfully, because when I was a child, that did not fly in our house. So now I see how that triggers me because I'm super aware of it. But what I would say is when that happens, your child or the child you're working with is probably not in a state of their brain where they can make good decisions and be a good friend and be kind and respectful. So you're going to need to help them sort of co-regulate in that moment. And so that means if you react aggressively, they're probably going to react aggressively too, because, aggression begets aggression. So what you're going to want to do is to take a deep breath And I just say to myself, this behavior is information, right? And I didn't make that phrase up. It's not unique to me. But when we view behavior as information and not as our students or our kids being out to get us or trying to push our buttons, then we are more likely to be able to come up with a solution that is helpful rather than hurtful to them and to us and to our relationship. And so when someone says something super sassy to me, I might just take a deep breath and give myself a second before I respond, because sometimes they are looking for a quick response from you. But I would just say, you can either address that hurtful statement. I don't like it when you talk that way to me. If you want to speak to me, you can use kind words and give them an example. Or I can tell you're really frustrated. I'm going to give you a few minutes to calm down and then I'll come back.
That's powerful advice, not just for dealing with young kids. I would say any relationship, feelings are real. Don't escalate. Try to understand where they're coming from. Just to add to that, I was joking. Obviously, I am always trying to navigate, and I think I fall into that trap as a parent does. If your child is not eating or whatever, and you're trying to push them, and then they kind of dig in their heels, and I think they're trying to push boundaries a little bit, and especially if things get really fall apart, they're having a tantrum, or maybe you feel like having a tantrum. How do you deal with that? I can imagine, especially the 4-year-old crowd. Sometimes with my 5-year-old, he just falls apart, and we're trying to put him back together. How do you deal with that?
Tantrums are hard, right? And my heart goes out to people when I see their kids doing it in public, because I know they're so embarrassed. But what you just need to remember is, we've all been through that. We've all gone through that. And if people are judging you for when that happens, then just, you can ignore them. But again, I would say you remaining calm is the most important thing in that moment. So sometimes it will look like me, asking a child if it's okay, if I can hug them or hold them, or hold their hands, and just doing some deep breaths, because at that moment you can't reason with them. So they're just different areas of your brain. And usually when they're throwing a tantrum, they're in a lower center of their brain where they can't reason, and they're in fight or flight mode, and probably fight if they're in that tantrum mode. And so you would just want to breathe, and you calmly breathing, not engaging verbally, usually will calm the situation enough where you can get to a point that you can reason with that child.
Wow, that's masterful. I feel more empowered just hearing you say that. So a lot of questions coming in from YouTube. Harsh Gotham asks, how do you feel when a small kid asks a lot of questions? How do you deal with them? What to do when a kid asks a question and you don't know the answer back?
So this happens to me all the time. I always say, you never know what you don't know until a kid asks you to explain something. And so, our high school mascot where I live is the Vikings. And someone asked me, what's a Viking? And I was like, how do I explain this to a child, what a Viking is? And once someone asked me, what is chocolate, or just some, I was like, I really got to go through this. So first I would encourage you to follow up. And I think that it's okay to admit that you don't know something. So when a student asks me a question, I don't know, I'd be like, let's look that up together. Where do you think we can find out what that is? And you can teach them how to do those beginning steps of research. But I think also when they ask you something that you don't know, ask them what they think it is, and see if you can get an explanation from there. Kind of turn it on them, and maybe start working on some of those critical thinking skills.
It's interesting that you brought up Vikings. I recently read an article that even our perceptions of Vikings, we imagine these, their Vikings were definitely from Scandinavia, but they were these seafarers who would go and pillage coastal villages and things like that. But apparently, the Vikings might have been different than we imagined. But anyway, that's a whole other topic. You went there.
Just go on and on.
Yeah, it's fascinating. One question, this is related to the last one, but this is something I deal with a lot at home is, I have 3 kids, 11, 9, and 5. You're dealing with classrooms of many 4-year-olds. One thing that kids like to do is they like to show adults that they care about the things that they've done. But, sometimes after a long day of work, and I'm sure sometimes you're tired at work, you have 5 kids come at you at the same time and say, hey, Miss Rosproy, look at what I did. Look at what I did. Did you know that this is true? Did you know that the Vikings never ate chocolate? Whatever. How do you deal with that? How do you triage that inbound that I think I see a lot of young kids like to do?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, they can be exhausting. I sometimes have bruises on my shoulders or my legs from being tapped so hard. I I did make a rule in my class. If you want my attention, you need to say my name instead of tapping me this hard. And then, you just hear your name constantly. And I would just really try to create some boundaries. If you know that the minute that you get home that you're not going to be able to handle this, you can create those boundaries with your kids and say, all right, when I get home, let's do hugs, high fives, kisses, whatever you're used to. And then I need 10 minutes and I'm going to be in this room and I'm going to put a little stop sign on the door. And that means don't come in, and then do what you need to do to collect yourself, to meditate, to exercise, to check your emails, spend a little time by yourself, because it's overwhelming, that like fatigue from, managing a household and managing a job. And then I would say, come out and be ready to have those discussions. And if your child is struggling with that, I sometimes give kids a notebook. And then they can write or draw the things they want to talk to me about. And then later, when we have time, I might point to my schedule and say, okay, it's time to show me the ideas that you wanted to share at circle time when it was everyone else's turn to talk. So I just think creating some routines, might be helpful in that situation.
That's super valuable. I'm going to try to apply that. There's a related question from YouTube, Deathstroke, asks, what if a child asks a question which shouldn't be answered at the time, like adult stuff? What do you do then?
Yeah. They do. They know, but what's funny is most of the time they don't know that it's adult stuff. And so, sometimes I will even get questions in my classroom about religion or about things that aren't really my place to comment on. I mean, even politics at preschool sometimes. And I try to be just, really neutral. And I will say, everybody believes different things. This is something you might want to ask your mom and dad about, or your grandma about, your caregiver, whoever they live with, when you get home. And if you want me to help you do that, let's write a note to them and know that you brought that up. But if it's something kind of inappropriate, I think that I might just say, you know what, let's talk about that a little bit later. Right now we're talking about math, or right now we're talking about letter A, or something like that. I just wouldn't make a big deal about it, because once you make, a huge deal, the other kids know that it was something inappropriate, and probably the pattern is going to be then other kids will ask about it too. So just try to be chill. That's what that would be my advice.
Yeah, no, great advice. So from YouTube, Susanna Garcia Dominguez asks, hi, Tabatha, how do you teach young students to regulate?
Okay. This is a great question too. So I am a huge fan of conscious discipline. And if you've never heard of that, I would start by reading the book, Easy to Love, Difficult to Discipline by Dr. Becky Bailey. I'm not in any kind of partnership or promotion. I just love conscious discipline.
I'm writing that down. Let me get some paper. What is that again? Easy to love.
Easy to love, difficult to discipline. That book changed my life, and now I am a huge fan of Dr. Becky Bailey and all the work she does. She has tons of free resources on the Conscious Discipline website for families and for teachers. And one big thing to do is, first, you have to teach them sort of what feelings are, right? What's it noticing? What's it feel like when I'm angry? What's it look like when I'm sad? What is my body doing? You want to work on helping them notice things like that about themselves and about others. And a big way that you can do that is not using judgmental language like, I like it when you're mad, or I like it when you're happy and calm. I don't like it when you're sad or angry. Because feelings are okay. What's not okay is exploding when you're angry. But it is okay to be angry. Feelings give us information. We just need to teach kids what to do. We need to teach them those replacement behaviors for tantrums and for throwing things or hitting or hiding, things like that. And so again, you want to wait until they're calm to do the teaching. You want to model calming strategies like deep breathing, maybe coloring a picture when you're feeling overwhelmed, or getting a hug from a person that you love. I mean, I could go on and on about this, but I think the biggest part is letting them know that feelings are okay and helping them notice what feelings look like and what to do when you're having those feelings.
Really, I'm going to buy this book right after this
Do
conversation.
really
but I love what you're saying.
should.
That's actually something I've only recently appreciated, not just with dealing with kids, but just relationships in general, is that you should never question someone's feelings. Feelings by definition are real. So you should never tell someone that like they're not real or you can't have that, or our perceptions of reality might be different, and people can be right or wrong about their perceptions of reality, but the feelings are real. And so yeah, no, I'm definitely going to take a look at that book. So this is a question I've been getting a lot. I would love your advice because you deal day in day out with young kids. From Facebook, Irene is asking, with the short attention spans that younger kids have, how do you keep them engaged when teaching online?
This is so hard, and I differ a lot in my school of thought from what the reality that many of our schools are in right now. I think 5 to 10 minutes max is the attention that you can keep online. As you can see, it is a struggle. I would say the biggest thing is to make a schedule, right? And one of the big things I offer to the families of students in my class is some kind of first then picture schedule. So you might have a picture of, first I'm doing Zoom, then I get to do a preferred activity like Play-Doh or play outside. And you can draw pictures, you can print pictures from the internet. If you want to find me on social media, I would be glad to share with you resources that I have already made for this, if you wanted to make your life way easier. But just helping your kids understand what the expectation is, it helps them feel safe, and that helps them be able to learn better, be able to regulate their emotions when it's not something that they really feel like doing. But also just to let them know, hey, here's what I expect for today. Here's what you're going to do, and here's what I'm going to do. I think that really helps, just having that routine, and the expectation set.
No, just watching you, I mean, you exude like positive energy, but you seem to just have it figured out. I'm very impressed. There's a question here. I don't know if you see it at the preschool level. I could imagine to some degree. From Facebook, Muna Yusuf is asking, how do you encourage kids to report bullying? I guess we could broaden that to how you deal with bullying. I'm curious, do you see bullying at that age group at the preschool level? Then how do you deal with it if you do?
I am of the idea that, bullying is still a huge problem. I think it's a little more invisible than it used to be because it's become more like cyberbullying or online.
Mm.
But, again, I'll go back to conscious discipline. There's a great video out on YouTube about I think it's called Making a Bully from Scratch. And it talks a lot about, what we do as a society that encourages that kind of behavior, and what we do and how we help victims in that situation. And so one huge thing we have to work on is building relationships between our students. One thing that Dr. Becky Bailey also says is that willingness comes from connection. And so I'm a lot more likely to want to work with you and get along with you if I feel connected to you and feel like we have something in common. And so I think it's the job of teachers at every level to be building classroom community, within their school. Like, I'm doing this as intentionally as I am doing math and literacy and social studies. It is a part of every day. It is a part of every subject that we are looking for ways to teach kids to see others with love and empathy. So I think if we could do that, at every level, our kids would be way better off, and I think that the levels of bullying would go way down.
Yeah, and it's a good point. It starts from someplace, and the more you can build that early on, the resilience against bullying. So from YouTube, New Trap Nation ask, what do you think about the way we are learning during COVID-19? And I'll expand that question a little bit. What are you seeing in their students? I think your students are very fortunate to have you, and I think you're doing it as well as anyone can. But are you seeing some gaps? Are you worried about even your students? And what are your kind of concerns more broadly for what kids are going through right now?
So I'm troubled by some of the things that I see happening. I think that teachers, administrators, everyone is doing their absolute best, but there are just requirements that we have to meet from our states, and there are requirements we have to meet federally. I would like to see some relaxation on some of those requirements, because in the situation of virtual learning, it is never going to look just like school does when you're in person. And I think the expectations that we put on families and on students to have kids doing this synchronous learning experience 6 hours a day from home, it's not sustainable. It's not feasible, and it's burning a lot of people out, students and families and teachers all included in that. What I would like to see is some more asynchronous opportunities. So say teachers upload videos of themselves teaching or lessons or activities, and families are able to complete those within a week's time, within the time frame that works for them.
Yeah, no, what you're saying makes a ton of sense. I mean, what we've been saying when I'm asked the same question is we have to, I'd argue even pre-COVID, we were probably trying to do too much, but especially
Yes.
during this time to trying to transplant 6 hours of in-person with 6 hours of video conference
Mhm.
is not, it's going to burn out the teachers, it's going to burn out the students, it's going to burn out the parents, it's going to only add anxiety. This is a time that less is more, so that you
Yeah.
have more space for families to just take care of everything else and not atrophy. What are these is it just that the teachers are feeling pressure from the state and I guess then the districts that, hey, I got to cover this many standards in this many days, and that they're saying you have to have this much FaceTime in person. I think some in person, quote in person video conference makes sense,
Mhm.
but yeah, 6 hours is ridiculous for anybody.
I think that, what they're expecting is kind of 6 hours of learning time. And so some teachers are
Mm.
really able to do, a certain amount of minutes together online and then some of the stuff on your own. The reality we're facing is, though, that some students are at home alone, or they don't have someone helping keep them in a routine, or older siblings are the caregiver. And so I think some teachers are feeling pressure because of that to be more present in those student lives. But for sure, I think most of the pressure is just coming from regulations. And some schools just don't have enough staff to do anything except for let kids do synchronous learning. So I'm going to be teaching in class. If you're a remote learner, you're going to be watching me teach in class. And so that's where sort of that creates all of that time online that is just not healthy and not good for kids to just sit for 6 hours. So what I hope is that we're going to find some more creative ways to engage online. But I know that like the hybrid models that are happening are some of the most challenging.
Hmm. And we have time for maybe one last question. These conversations always go faster than expected. From Facebook, Muniba Zishan asks, how do students bond, interact with fellow classmates in the virtual classroom environment? Our kids are missing that healthy interaction that they had in class with their classmates.
Mhm. This is also tough. I love technology. In some ways, it makes our world a lot smaller. In some ways, it makes it a lot bigger. I find that the biggest, most important thing when connecting kids online is not just giving them FaceTime with me. We do need that individual FaceTime and whole class time, but setting up small groups. And I've seen several teachers do this, and they do things like lunch buddies. And, every day of the week, different groups of 3 or 4 students will meet and have lunch together. Then kids, are more likely, and that's virtually, kids are more likely to open up in a smaller group, especially our older ones. And with our younger ones, they're a lot more likely to be validated and heard because they have lots of things to share online. And so I think that any opportunity you have to decrease the size of the groups that you're working with, you should definitely take, because that is something that will help build those bonds.
No, I love that idea. No, we've been throwing out the idea of instead of having 60 minutes with 20 or 30 kids, why not have 10 minutes with 5 kids, with 6 kids?
Yes. Yeah.
Increases the interactivity. It fits into what you're talking about around attention span, et cetera. Well, Tabitha, we're all out of time. I mean, I could keep talking to you. And I said, I don't say this, you could watch the other films of other people that we've been, you naturally exude this very positive energy that I think is part of the reason that you much deservedly are National Teacher of the Year for 2020. Do you have any just final messages for either parents who are, especially parents of 4 or 5-year-olds struggling right now, and teachers who are struggling with their regular lives and trying to do distance learning right now?
For teachers, the main thing that I would say is use your voice right now. Okay, we have a big audience, whether we like it or not, for the first time. All eyes are on school, and we need you. We need the aides, we need the custodians, and all the support professionals to be using their voice to talk to the people in their district about what their needs are and what their student needs are. We need you to advocate right now, and also hang in there, because you're doing your best. And so give yourself some grace. And that's what I want to say to families too. This is a big, big change in the way your lives have operated. And so just give yourself some grace, do the best that you can, keep your kids on some kind of routine and schedule, but also give them a break, because this is hard for them too. But just hang in there. I always say together we'll see it through. And I think that's totally true. And the more that we work together and communicate and advocate, the better off that we'll be.
Wow. Well, no, great advice. I feel less anxious after you saying that. So thank you. Tabitha, thank you so much. And once again, congratulations on being National Teacher of the Year. Much, much deserved.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Well, thanks everyone. I think, y'all probably felt the same, positive energy that I felt. It's really inspiring to talk to a teacher like Tabitha. Thanks so much for joining, and I will see y'all. Let's see, the next conversation is going to be next Tuesday. We're going to have Lisa Damore, who's a New York Times columnist specializing on kind of social, emotional, and emotional well-being, which is obviously a very important topic, some of which we just touched on. So I will see you on Tuesday on the Homeroom live stream. See you then.